You're listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft and people who play it. Today is June 3rd, 2024, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing on this fine Monday in June?
Oh, Spencer, hello. Yes, first show of June. It is summertime is almost upon us. We certainly have some summer-themed topics to talk about this week.
Indeed.
I got a little summer vacation nearly upon me, so that's very exciting, but it's going to make for a bit of a hectic week because that's just how it is when you're, an adult with responsibilities. But I'm looking forward to that. It also means I got to cram all my WoW stuff into just a few days here.
True.
But man, we got so much going on. A lot of stuff to talk about. I feel like that we sort of hinted at on last week's show. We got into talking about on last week's show, and now sort of have paid dividends this week. So that's always kind of fun when that happens.
It's always fun when that happens.
It almost makes it seem like we know what we're talking about once in a while. It's like, hey, these guys talked about this on Monday, and then there was a post about it on the next day or whatever, and now here you go. So got a lot of news this week. We got some clarifications about some other stuff, but it's just I don't know. As always, it's just not slowing down. Kind of, we're just on that roller coaster straight into War Within launch. I feel like, and obviously this week's going to be big for that as well. I've just still been really busy in retail. There's still stuff I want to do in there, and Remix has been a nice little distraction on the side. Just sort of, I want to hop in and do stuff in WoW, but I'm sort of aimless or whatever. I just want to hang out in the game and do something, and that's sort of the gap that Remix is mostly filling for me. So it's nice. I mean, season 4 is slowing down a little bit, as we sort of start checking stuff off the list. It's like we're getting down to those last few pieces that we need or whatever, but that's a good feeling, and it feels good to play. Obviously, like power is just ramping up so much, and it feels really nice to be able to target specific stuff that you want and then max it out a lot, because it just you feel it. You then take that straight into whatever you're doing, and you're like, oh yeah, this is the way I want my character to feel. It actually worked. Great.
Yeah, I would certainly say that Remix is been a fun experience for me this past week. I definitely wanted to be sure all my trading post stuff was all aligned and everything was all done. And I basically was like, all right, I've capped out trading post with Remix stuff. I am now stepping away from Remix for the rest of the week until it rolls into June. And then I'll be back in Remix again. It's like the alternative motivations to get in and actually do stuff is always kind of funny when it comes to World of Warcraft. So in this case, it's the min-max optimizing of, hey, if I'm going to dedicate time to this over something else that I want to spend time playing or doing or whatever it is, then I might as well be trying to get the maximum benefit from it. So maxing out my trading post is currently the side benefit of doing some Remix stuff at the moment. But yeah, it's been a busy week in WoW for sure. A lot going on, especially with Cataclysm kicking off and everyone diving into that. And we have announcement about War Within beta coming up this week on Thursday. So that's going to be another big thing this coming week in WoW. It just keeps going and going and going, man. It's not slowing down anytime soon. So let's dive into what you got up to this past week in World of Warcraft so we can get to going on to what's going on this week in World of Warcraft.
Yeah, so it was, like I said, we've been powering up a lot, obviously. We're pretty deep into Season 4 now in terms of bullion and everything, and this week was another bullion purchase. My signups are a little all over the place, and, it is getting to be summertime, and, there are some people on vacation, there's some people just kind of checking out until expansion, whatever. So my signups were a little wonky for later in the week, so I said, okay, Tuesday, let's just prioritize Mythic. I know we're going to have like 20 people in Mythic. We'll have a competent group. We can go in there, and it's a Mir Drasil week. We are very confident in our ability to down the first 3 bosses at least, which is a very nice reward for the whole team. So we did that. We had a couple wipes on Agira, which is sort of to be expected. It's a boss that not everybody is super familiar with. Not everybody that I raid with has as many pulls on it as kind of the core team had when we were progging it and stuff. And it's, it's very positioning dependent. It's really like a sort of a dance that you have to execute properly. And, so it's expected there's going to be a couple wipes, but I'm thinking, okay, this is going to just eat into, our overall raid time for later this week or whatever, but, we'll get there. I think we one-shot Volcaroth probably. That's a relatively easy boss once people understand what the dance is supposed to look like. And then we're like, okay, let's go reset. We'll get as far through Heroic as we can. And that meant all the way through all the bosses, including Farok.
There you go.
Yeah, it was like 2 hours flat. I mean, that was so many bosses in so little time, especially with the wipes we had in Agira. So that was, I mean, you could just tell by that how much we're kind of powering up. I feel like, Heroic and Mirjasa will probably be a slightly sub 2 hour clear for us under most normal circumstances. But doing that plus 3 mythic bosses plus with some wipes, that just shows you how fast stuff is dying, which feels awesome. It's really cool. Plus it's a nice benefit to get everybody a mythic raid choice out of their vault, and then also 30 aspect crest, which is 2 upgrades on a pretty good piece of gear already. So that's nice. On Wednesday, it was just like, okay, I guess we're just going to do keys because we don't really have the personnel or the interest to go back into mythic tonight, and we really have nothing else to do in Dragonflight raiding. But people do want to do keys, get crests, get raiding, and whatever else. I mean, I think mostly everybody's just in it for crests and vault slots at this point. Everybody's sort of hit the raiding thresholds they want. So ended up banging out like 8. I think I only did 8 keystones this week, which is probably the least I've done all season. But again, I'm trying to get that 120 aspect crest, right? I got 30 from raid. And then I'm at the point now where I can buy them with worm crests because I don't need worm crests anymore. So I think I bought another 15 or maybe even 30 from there, which really cut down the amount I needed out of keystones. But, keys were pretty good last week. I probably got a minor bit of rating. I'm not really trying to push anything, but I am trying to help out my buddies who have missed teleports or whatever, or switch tunes or what have you. So we've been knocking out some of those, which is really cool. I probably said on the show, like at the outset of season 4, I don't know, I'm not going to do plus 10s because why bother? But a lot of people really did want to have teleports to unlock that they wanted, which I'm happy to help out with. And also my min-max brain has been kicking in really hard with the aspect crest. All I really want to do is get to the point where I'm done with them, and then I can get any piece of gear from anywhere and upgrade it fully without any crests at all. And so I'm trying to cap every week, and I'm counting down how long it is until I don't need them anymore. I'm getting pretty close. So that's been a big motivator. But the other thing too is if you do 10s, you get 522s versus the 519s. If you do 8s or 9s, that's an extra 15 crests effectively. It's like a 15 crest discount per slot, which means less crests you need to do in total for the season. So I've been trying to fill up my vault with plus 10s, and probably after this week, I think it is not going to matter for me. So, I'll just do whatever at that point because I won't need to worry about the crest math.
Right.
I did spend some time on the Monk and Druid, but just doing basically the main focus was to catch up on Bullion, because I didn't do it on either one of them last week, and then this week was an even Bullion week. So, I did a little bit of LFR, got my 2 Bullion on each of them, and went and bought a piece, which is really nice. And the rest of the week, I spent time mostly in Remix. My tune finished the week at 444 item level gear in every slot, which is feeling really strong. Last night we ended up doing Heroic Siege of Orgrimmar with the 10-man group of guildies, which is not really what I intended to do, because I know not everybody's put the time in or whatever, but a couple guys were super geared up. They've just been real sweaty with Remix, and so it was basically 4 or 5 of us carrying the entire group, which meant some of the boss kills were kind of dicey, but they were dying. Everything died, and so we got everybody through, which means plenty of bronze, plenty of gems and gear. You get a lot of epic gear out of Heroic Raid, which is awesome, plus achievements and everything like that. The Bones of Manaroth from the Garrosh kill, if there's stuff people want from that. So that was really cool. It was not as hard as I thought it was going to be, but then again, also I had, one of our druids came, and he's just been maxing out in Remix, and he was doing 3 million, 2+ million DPS in Guardian spec, and also healing everyone while he was a Guardian. Ever. So yeah, we're like, okay, yeah, why don't you just do that? So that was cool. And other than that, I've been working on the campaign questing. I need to finish the Dreadwaste campaign to get the last achievement done, but I'm trying to kind of do the campaign in order. So I finished up Townlong Steps this week, and I'm in Dreadwaste now, but I barely started. So that may be a project for maybe when I get back from vacation, actually. But having a good time. I mean, I think they've made some good changes to the mode overall, and I feel good about powering up my character and stuff. I'm really seeing the payoffs. I felt like last week there was a palpable spike around Wednesday or Thursday where I was doing match-made stuff with people, and it felt like everybody was just blasting. So I think a lot of people are starting to hit this threshold of power where it's really trivializing the content, which is pretty fun. And also, I just wanted to give a brief tip of the hat to Royal Flux from Twitter. He hit me up and was like, hey, that vendor that sells the class arsenal stuff, you can just shut the filter off and you can buy anything from any class. So you don't have to do anything with another character if you have the achievement done, which I never even thought to look at or attempt to do. So I logged in on the warrior, did that. I bought the stuff for the monk I wanted. I now do not have to, play that monk at all or farm out 7K bronze on that character to buy the other stuff.
Yeah.
And I also know that I can buy that stuff for other classes now if I want to as well, as I continue to work on my bronze economy. But that was awesome. So thanks for letting me know. And a couple other people also let me know eventually later in the week, which I appreciate. And hopefully that helps somebody else out too. If you're thinking like, oh man, like I want all that stuff. The trading post recolors are so cool, but I don't want to play that many tunes. Like you don't have to just adjust the filter to see stuff from all classes. And you can, like, obviously you can't use it on, if you buy monk stuff on a warrior, you can't have the warrior wear it, but it's attached to your account. And then you can, log in on a monk and use the Mog. So that was really nice. Saves me a lot of time doing stuff I don't want to do, so I can spend my time doing what I do want to do. And it looks great too. It's really cool looking stuff.
And for you, leveling new characters isn't necessarily like a big draw at the moment because you have kind of done everything that's involving with leveling new characters. So I get that if you can avoid doing that and sink your time into something else, then that's certainly worthwhile for you. So get that entirely. For me, it's campaign quests as well. I just sort of work my way through those to try and finish off a lot of the objective stuff I have, queue LFRs to kill bosses and get boss kills, that kind of idea as far as powering up a character goes. But it's slow going for me. I still haven't started working on a second character yet, which I will at some point. I still feel as though with the amount of changes coming in for Remix that waiting longer is just going to be more beneficial. Like if I wait until there's only 30 days left, I'll probably get one of the better experiences of this event because by then they'll have things more tuned in to be forgiving for players and more exciting for players. So I feel like, and also any group content that I do, I imagine will just fall over and I won't really have to do anything because other people will just be so ridiculously powered up because they've been playing it so.
Like eventually that spike is going to plateau, but it's going to plateau well above whatever the expectations of the content are for sure. I mean, like people are just powering up so much, I feel like.
Yeah, exactly. So I do feel like there's going to be the opportunity to be like, yeah, sure, I'll go and do a Siege of Orgrimmar run and I hop in and there's like 5 of us and the other 4 people just kill everything as I walk behind them through the entire place. Like I don't expect that not to be a thing at some point or another for my less powered up characters because I'll just be leveling a bunch of different characters and not really focusing on one in particular. So I expect that to be a result that I see down the line. But yeah, we'll have to see how it all plays out later on. But for now, let's hop into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, this week in Dragonflight, we got the Cataclysm Time Walking event going on, where the Sign of the Destroyer buff is up, increasing Cataclysm reputation gains from quests by 50%. The characters level 35 and above can access time walking versions of End Time, Blackrock Caverns, Lost City of Tol'vir, Stonecore, Vortex Pinnacle, and Throne of the Tides. And they're dropping some 467 eye-level gear on the Adventurer track, as well as the vendor selling off some 450 gear. There's a quest to complete 5 dungeons or time walking bosses. This is the other crucial thing here. They've now added in that if you just kill 5 time walking bosses, you actually get this accomplished as well, and that gets you a cache of normal awakened loot. I love the change. I'm curious what inspired the change. This is one of those things where yes, this quest just became substantially easier to accomplish for players, and it's either that they're like, hey, you know what, we're listening to that Starting Zone show and we want to respect players' time. So as opposed to making everyone just steamroll through 5 time walking dungeons that they don't get any loot out of that they care about because their mains are all higher item level in this, but they want to get that normal cache. This is a faster way to do that, where you just get 5 bosses.
Right, in the Firelands time walking raid, yeah. So it kind of depends on having groups for it, which I don't know what the group finder situation is like for something like that, and I don't know about guild scheduling for something like that, but it is super nice to double dip on that with the quest, the event quest for the raid also. Like you go into the raid, you go into Firelands with a flex size group, it normalizes your item level, and you walk out with your weekly kill 5 raid bosses quest done, and you walk out with the event quest for. I mean, I guess you probably have to defeat Ragnaros, so you have to like clear the whole thing, but then you get that, which also has a chance to give you like unique cosmetics and all that stuff. So
and it's 493 out of the loot, right? It's champion track loot, so it's 493. So you're more likely to have players able to find something that they're actually looking for. And yeah, like you said, it's all depends on the actual looking for group situation, where it's like, hey, time walking Firelands for 10 people is not super hard to sort of put together and steamroll through a lot of this content. So especially the power level people are getting to now, I think that it's a decent way to go, hey, you know what? There's a better chance at stuff that I might be interested in on my character, as well as this is content that we are going to smash through. And I'd be curious which one would end up being faster, doing the 5 time walking dungeons or doing 5 bosses. I think
if you have like a well-oiled group that's going in there, I think Firelands, even if it's not like straight up faster, it's just going to be more rewarding. It's going to be more fun because especially if you're playing with your normal friends or whatever. And plus, like you do get that extra quest. You get better gear. Yeah, like it's just. I mean, it's not that much of a challenge. I haven't done. Obviously, this is the first time we've seen Firelands time walking in season 4.
Yeah.
But I have done some season 4 raid time walking. Like Black Temple just fell over. And I never felt like Firelands was particularly difficult. Like there have been times where Ulduar time walking has been more trouble than it was worth, in my opinion. I haven't stepped into Firelands where it was feeling that way. So I think this is a great thing to take advantage of if you can do that this week, especially if you have characters you're trying to gear up, because it's all just sitting there for you. And also, great way to level too. I mean, I think the time walking dungeons are usually pretty fast. These are not like super.
Yeah.
Except for like end time. End time that requires a little bit of technique, but the rest of these are pretty much just blast through it, and the XP yield is pretty good. So I think it's a great option, and you only need to be level 35 to get in there and take advantage of it. So all in all, this is a plus it's kind of serendipitous that we have a Cataclysm time walking week right after Cata Classic launched and Cata Classic raids just opened. That's kind of fun. And also, we just had Vortex Pinnacle and Throne of the Tides in the dungeon pool in Dragonflight, which is kind of fun. So yeah, overall a cool event. I think the only problem here is there's just too much stuff to do. So like how do you rank, let's say, I don't know, it's your guild's like open run night or just kind of alt night or whatever. Do you do Cataclysm Firelands time walking, or do you do MOP remix, or do you do alt night and awakened raids, or you know what I mean? Like how do you that could be tough. I think it's great for like normal focus teams because it just gives them a whole bunch of extra stuff to do this week, which is fun and super accessible. Like this is not going to be a big challenge for most teams going in there.
Yeah, a lot of raid teams that typically would either be working on normal content sort of casually and having a good time with it, but want to break from it, this is really good for. I would also say it's great for folks who usually raid a few nights a week, but have been dropping down to raiding, fewer and fewer nights. And maybe this week they go, hey, you know what, guys, we're going to try and put something together for that night that we normally have been taking off recently. For this, if you're interested, feel free to hop in and do something, and you can have a little bit more more fun with your friends that week. Friends with your fun. So it'll be
why not both have it all. Yeah.
So that'll be something that you can hop into and try out. All right, outside of that, we have the last hurrah going on for Dragon Isles, so it means doing a community feast, participating in a hunt, and doing a siege on Dragonbane Keep. So that is certainly a task to accomplish based off of a lot of timers and making sure things sync up properly. But it is what it is for that first go around. And this, of course, also means that Strunrun, the Sky's Misery, is the awakened world boss for the week, dropping that 499 eye level loot out in Onaran Plains. So be sure you're taking advantage of that. And then we got Deepwind Dunk up for our brawl this week.
Oh, wait, I want to cut in here for 1 second because something just occurred to me.
Yeah.
It is Monday afternoon as we record this.
Yeah.
So it is not Reset NA. There is a non-zero chance that everything is awakened this week, because that was like the original timeline, which would mean you would be able to choose your last hurrah quest and maybe all 3 world bosses would be awakened, etc. There was actually no communication about that so far. Like sometimes those blue posts go out on Fridays. There's the This Week in WoW post that goes up. They didn't say anything about that. And we know that, like, obviously the original schedule that was published in the season 4 patch notes didn't happen because it was supposed to be a bi-weekly rotation on each of the raids for 2 cycles. And instead we got a weekly rotation for 3 cycles so far. So we don't, at this exact moment, we don't know. But if they're sticking with the one, the one awakened raid, they're focusing on the one tier of content, it's going to be Dragon Isles this week. So keep that in mind. But it's, it could be, man, if I'm anxiously awaiting for them to, kind of pull that ripcord and just have everything be awakened, because I want to just go around and farm out like relatively easy mythic bosses, just get everybody on the team some more myth track gear and get more crests. Plus, I've had no luck with season 4 world bosses, but at least there's hope for the alts to maybe get something if there's more options. So we'll see. I think they got to do it at some point, right? But we just, at this exact moment, we don't know if that's going to be this week or not.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly could be, and if it is, then that's wonderful. So get out there and check things out. I would really hope there's a Warcraft news pop-up in the game when you log in on your screen that says everything's awakened, and that's be great.
Put something on the launcher or something. I mean, that should be what it's there for. So we'll see. I mean, I gotta feel like it's not going to be this week, because I would hope that they would have communicated with us about it if it was.
Right.
But then again, it wouldn't surprise me if they were just like, hey, guess what? Everything's awakened. Go have fun. Because sometimes they just do that. So we'll find out tomorrow.
Yeah, it's it will be interesting to find out. But skipping back to where we were, the Deepwind Dunk is the brawl for the week, and that is Deepwind Gorge with basically Dunk Ball going on. So you're going to need to work on your Dunk Ball skills, because you got to sort of claim these balls from the map center and run them to either the northern, southern, or take them to your enemy's base, and then you just dunk them. You basically you're trying to get past everyone as fast as possible and slam these balls into the dunk spots. So take advantage of this while you can with the brawls. Get yourself some Marks of Honor, Conquest and Honor, and have yourself a good time playing some dunk ball if that's what you're into this week.
Yeah, we got the NBA playoffs hurtling towards the finals here. Mm-hmm. So perfect time. I mean, look at this. Look at all the serendipitous timing this week. We got Kata time walking. We got Deepwind Dunk for the playoffs. It's just all happening right now. Yeah,
exactly. All right. When it comes to Mythic Plus this week, we have Tyrannical, Afflicted, and Bolstering, meaning bosses have more health and them and their minions deal 15% increased damage. While in combat, the Afflicted souls periodically appear and seek the aid of players, and any non-boss enemies that die empower their nearby allies, increasing their damage by 20%. This affects stacks. So, bolstering Afflicted, anything with Afflicted we automatically kind of frown at, because this just means that we're in a situation where having a particular group comp helps. It's kind of an irritating affix to begin with. And yeah, so it's not the best Tyrannical week overall. I will say the nice thing is bolstering, if you are doing hierarchies, doesn't really affect Tyrannical at all, which is cool, but it will make all of the trash a lot more dangerous. So it is going to make stuff a little bit scarier. If you're AoEing down packs and one mob is out, not part of that group, then it is going to get very, very big with all of these death cries empowering it. I almost, and every time I sort of think about bolstering, I go, it would be neat if you CC'd a ad if it was not affected by bolstering while it was CC'd. So if you actually sheeped, polymorphed or trapped or banished an ad and bolsterings were going off, banish might actually still work that way because it technically phases them out, but I don't know. Then it wouldn't actually get bolstered. So you could actually pick and use CC inside of dungeons again to have a really effective way of doing something. That would be cool. But yeah. In general,
you could do that, but because there's a max range on the bolster when it goes out. So if you were willing to move the stuff you were killing way far away from whatever you had CC'd, that would work. I'm just not sure, with the way stuff is tuned right now, I don't think that would be any kind of a time benefit or anything, because it would have to be something really dangerous, that was just going to straight up kill you, which is probably a tuning error at that point. So you could do that. I think with the state of the Keystone pool and tuning and where character power is at right now, it probably wouldn't be worth doing unless you were trying to push something really absurd and it was okay, there's the only way that we can survive this thing is to do this, which most of us are probably not doing. But yeah, overall this week is, I agree with you. Whenever you see Afflicted, it's okay, here we go. we don't like this. We don't want to have stuff that's super comp dependent. We don't want to have affixes that many classes and specs just can't interact with or help their group out with. And, Afflicted also happens during Tyrannical. So you will have, that's another thing to pay attention to on bosses that are already harder. And if you miss them, then that's going to make the boss even that much harder because now you're debuffed. Boltering shouldn't be that bad this week because it's Tyrannical. So the baseline damage on the mobs is already lower. But, you might have, if you're in like Brackenhide Hollow, for example, there's some pretty big pulls in there, especially at the front. And they just run away, right? When they get low health, they take off. So you might have something that's still in range of its allies, but you are not like able to reach it or attack it, and it's just like racking up bolster, and then it runs back on you. That could be kind of obnoxious. I think that's
one shot your tank or a healer or someone.
Yeah. Like that could theoretically happen. So you got to make sure that you're rounding up those mobs when they run away. That's the case that immediately pops into my head. Like that might be kind of nasty this week, even though it's tyrannical bolstering. So overall, I don't know. I think this is an okay week. It's really not that bad, actually. It's just that Afflicted feels terrible to deal with, and you have to metagame around it. You have to make sure that your comp is ready to go because you need answers to Afflicted every time.
Yeah, middle of the road week. I agree. That is definitely
it's going to really suck for your warriors and your DKs and whoever else is trying to get into groups because it's like, well, why would I bring you when somebody else can just actually deal with the affix?
Yeah. Exactly. All right. Darkmoon Fair is live. It runs until June 8th. So if you're someone who wants to hop in and enjoy the fair, get yourself some extra experience, reputation gain, get yourself some more skill ups for professions, get yourself some more tickets to be able to buy more rewards. It's all available, and there's even more achievements to go there. If there's more achievements that you want to try and get your dance on and get yourself some toys, all sorts of stuff you can get. So be sure you are enjoying and exploring the fair, and be sure that you're filling us in if you end up getting something pretty cool out of it. All right,
nice combo here too with Cataclysm Time Walking.
True, yes.
Because get your hats or go on your carousel or your roller coaster ride, and then queue up some Time Walking dungeons, and that good XP I was talking about just gets that much better. So I want to try to do that myself this week if I can find some time. I'm not going to have much, but I would love to finish off leveling the Hunter and just finally check that off the list. And that's I saw this line up on the calendar a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh, that's the window maybe. Get in there, get the Darkmoon Fair buff, and do some Cataclysm Time Walking.
It's it's so funny to talk about because in my head I'm just going, why wouldn't you just do Remix? right? You could probably level a new Hunter to max level in Remix because you get 100% increased XP gain on top of all the other XP gain faster than doing the other Hunters. So it's a funny thing of depending on what kind of WoW you want to experience and how attached you are to your character. It might just be faster to hop into Remix and knock out a character, but who knows?
Maybe.
Anyways,
I mean, my Hunter's like 65 plus, so I don't have very far to go. I just got to get in there and do it.
Fair enough.
I am hoping for like a Dragonflight XP holiday at some point because I do have a lot of investment, and many of these characters are almost 20 years old. I would love to not have the correct and only thing to do is to replace them. I don't plan on doing that. So, we have seen it in the past. I hope they do another XP holiday in Dragonflight at some point before the end here.
Yeah, I feel as though there's a chance that Mists of Pandaria Remix replaces any kind of pre-patch experience event that they would plan to do for Dragonflight, but I'm hoping they don't. I'm hoping they recognize that those are different audiences on a certain level. So hopefully, they keep that in there. All right. One of Jason's favorite micro holidays is here, and it's also one that brings back some of the most nostalgia for me, which is the 1,000 Boat Bash. From June 6th to 8th, you can head out to 1,000 Needles, and there's a quest chain you can do to collect boat parts that you can then put together your own boat for the next 7 days that you can use in all zones, and it increases your movement speed along the water surface by 330%. This is one of the few times of year where I regret that flying is a thing inside World of Warcraft because it is so much fun to find little ways to use your boat and travel different paths around the worlds that are out there by using rivers and using streams and using whatever, because it's such an advantage. 330% movement speed is crazy. And during Legion, when this was going on, it was the fastest way to get anywhere. You could literally be like, hey, I'm going to hop on a boat on the east coast of the map and ride that boat around the exterior of the continent to the other side of the coast. And it was faster than taking a flight path through the main part of the continent. It was crazy. So yes, there are certain times of the year where I'm like, I really miss those days back. But then I go, you know what? But dragon riding's amazing, and I love dragon riding. I don't want that to go away.
Right. Yeah, the dynamic flight dragon riding has sort of removed the shine from Thousand Boat Bash, which is sad. It was so great in Legion, because Legion had a ton of water, right? Broken Isles. You had water everywhere, and it was so fast. And even in BFA, it was pretty decent. In Shadowlands, it was like, well, there's basically no water here, so this is pointless. There is water in the Dragon Isles, but like, I don't know. We have completely rewritten the rule book on locomotion through World of Warcraft at this point, but I will say the quest chain for this is really fun. It's very flavorful. I loved it. The only sad part is it's once per character, but if you've never done it, you should check it out, because I think it's a really fun quest line, and the boats are cool looking. They're all, each race has a different boat design, or at least most of them do. Maybe not every allied race or something, but there's a lot of variety in the way the boats look and stuff, which is cool. It's very, themed around your character, and definitely worth doing if you've never done it before. I'm not going to do this because there's just no real point. To do. I guess I could go hop in on a character that never did the quest chain before and just do the quest chain again to do it, but it's definitely worth checking out if you've never done it. It's super fun.
Yeah, exactly. All right, hopping into hot fixes for this week. For Dragonflight, Shaman got themselves a fix to their 4-set bonus, for their Season 4 2-set bonus. Apparently, if you had a Healing Stream totem down and it expired while there were 2 or more other Healing Stream totems down, it would just completely negate the 2-set bonus. Apparently, that's been fixed. So I wasn't aware that they could have that many Healing Stream totems down all at the same time. So yeah, that's pretty cool bonus you guys got rolling on there. I hadn't kept up with what the Shaman Resto stuff was this expansion. So that's pretty cool. I'm glad they fixed that, because that makes you guys a lot weaker as far as that goes. All right, Protection Warrior. You guys have the Battle Scarred Veteran talent, and they've updated it so that now when you take damage that reduces you below 30% health, the portion of that damage that would be applied after that you drop below 30% health is now also reduced by 80%. So what my assumption is, based off of what they're saying here, is initially, if you had 100,000 hit points and you got hit for 80,000 hit points, you would just take 80,000 damage. Just period. That's just what would happen. Now, you'd get hit for 80,000, and the portion of that 80,000 damage that brought you below 30% is now reduced by an additional 80%, so that you then take even less damage. So yeah, overall good change to the talent. I feel like their developer note in here that used a lot of math is cool. I'm not necessarily sure it's essential to get the point across, but I'm glad they put it in.
Maybe a tad inscrutable for the lay person, but yeah. So this is interesting. Like, this is a talent that I don't think I've ever used in Dragonflight. It's sort of like it's almost like a cheat death effect, except you don't actually die. It's like it just makes you tankier when you get super low health. That is not really Warrior's specialty, and I feel like your job, if you were to develop skill at playing the spec, you should avoid that kind of spikiness entirely. Like, your specialty is having a very smooth damage curve overall. So that's why, like, it's never been an appealing talent to me, and I don't think it's ever been particularly meta. I don't know. It's not anything I would ever opt into. It's very low down the tree, and there's just other things I'd rather have, because I feel like I'm not doing like super cutting edge stuff or like super high end keystones, right? So I'm not going to get one shot out of nowhere and not see it coming.
Yeah.
So I can play well enough that I don't need this talent, but also, like, I sort of just assumed that it worked the way it works now previously, but instead you had to be, already below 30% health.
Yeah.
Which makes it a lot trickier to really get value out of, I feel like, because again, your specialty is mitigating hits and smoothing out the damage curve. So it would have to be a really big hit that's taking you by surprise to get that kind of reduction, right? And so if it's not applying that mitigation on that portion of the damage, then that's probably a big reason why I don't think the talent was particularly strong, and why it wasn't really in favor for most of this time.
Well, yeah, if you're at 35% remaining health because you just took a big hit from something, and then you get hit again for 38% of your health, which then kills you, but that wouldn't have killed you had this talent actually worked this way, that's really unfortunate about how it was designed. So I'm glad that they've put this change in, because yes, if you essentially have, 100,000 health left and that's 35%, and you get hit for 105,000 damage, which would kill you from that health with the way this talent previously worked, I'd be pretty upset, being like, man, this talent's garbage. It dropped me. I was barely not below 30% health, which means that when this hit me, it actually killed me and one-shot me before my talent could kick in. That's really bothersome and upsetting. Like, it just is.
Yeah,
like,
right. You're not really getting what you think you're paying for or something like that. Yeah. I guess one good thing about this change that occurs to me is this might have more value in the War Within, especially early on when we're low gear and kind of figuring stuff out. This gives you more of a safety valve, for exactly. Progging, or for like, my gear's not really in the state it needs to be. My secondaries aren't feeling great, so I need to be a bit tankier. Like, this change could actually be really good for that. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. I mean, I just, like, intuitively, I just assumed that it would, it's 2024. I assumed that it would work the way that it works now before, but now it actually does. So, I'll keep an eye on it. I don't know. I doubt I'll be working it into my repertoire for Dragonflight, but maybe at the outset of a new expansion.
Yeah. All right. Class tuning changes are coming to Dragonflight on June 4th. This means that we're seeing some changes to, well, here, I'll let Kyvex put it pointedly. We regularly make combat design adjustments based on gameplay data and feedback from players on class performance. With scheduled weekly maintenance in each region, we'll make the following changes to classes that are over and underperforming in various areas. Your Preservation Evokers are going to be getting a 6% healing increase. Your Restoration Druids will now have Moonfire cost reduced to 0.3% mana from 1.2% mana, so it's going to cost a fourth of what it used to cost. Survival Hunters, your 4-piece focus bonus for your 4-set bonus, cost reduction is increased to 20 from 10, so twice the focus reduction that you had previously. And your 4-set damage bonus was increased to 80% from 50%. So as much as Survival Hunters are destroying things inside of Season of Discovery, obviously inside of Dragonflight they are not, and so they are helping out the set bonus to get them back in line with where they should be. Holy Paladins, your Word of Glory healing is increased by 15%, and Light of Dawn healing is increased by 20%. And your Shaman, your Enhancement Shaman in particular, are getting a 10% bonus to Chain Lightning, Flame Shock, Frost Shock, Fire Nova, and Crashing Lightning damage, as well as Primordial Wave's additional lightning bolts now deal 175 up from 150% damage. So a lot of these changes, just bear in mind, are not PvP focused. The ones that do actually affect PvP are the Moonfire cost for Restoration Druids, the 4-set bonuses for Survival Hunters, as well as Light of Dawn healing for Paladin. Those all do affect PvP. And it's looking like, to me, these 10% bonuses for Enhancement Shaman are also ones that affect PvP. So Enhancement might be back in some PvP business if all those abilities are now doing 10% increased damage. So keep that in mind as well. Warlocks, your fear cost is now down by 1% mana, so you can fear people just a little bit more often, which I dislike, but it is what it is. Demonic Gateway now costs 10% of your base mana, as opposed to 20%. This is huge. I love this. I dislike when utility, especially raid utility, is something that costs a ton of mana to do. I don't think buffing players should cost a ton of mana. I don't think things like Demonic Gateway should cost a ton of mana. It is unfortunate when essentially a player is put in a position of having to give up so much damage or so much healing or so much of their own personal enjoyment of the game to put down something for the group. I dislike that. I think these abilities should cost substantially less. So I'm glad to see that change come in there for you guys there. They did do some PvP balance changes as well. If you're someone who really loves diving into PvP, then guess what? Be sure to hit the notes and check it out. I know that Restoration Druids got Wrath damage and Starfire damage increased by 50% and Moonfire damage increased by 80% inside PvP. So they're bringing the damage back to the Restos. If that's something that you're wanting to check out as a Resto Druid, be sure you're dipping into that and checking out the notes and maybe doing some more arenas or raid of battlegrounds, whatever it is that tickles your fancy as far as that sort of stuff goes.
They're not really like nerfing anything, which is good. I feel like the time has passed, Dragonflight is too old now. You can't nerf anything in PvE. PvP is a different story because players have different expectations. So stuff needs to go up and down over time. And so there's sort of a smattering of nerfs and buffs in the PvP changes. But like, you know, we kind of always say, oh, it stinks when they have to like nerf something that's strong in PvE. Like, why can't the other specs just come up a bit? And, you know, I feel like if there's ever a time to do that, it's now. You know, season 4 is the time for that. So I'm glad they're just, you know, trying to polish up a couple specs here without going, oh, yeah, we got some outliers, we got to bring them in line. Like, no, you don't, because we're just trying to have fun here. We just want to kill stuff, okay? Like,
fair enough.
We can get back into the super tight tuning in a couple months, but for the summer, let's just kill stuff.
I definitely get that. All right, speaking of summer, let's talk Trading Post. This is the June Trading Post on live game that you can hop in and check out. Man, okay, there's a lot of really fun stuff this month. And speaking of this month, it is Pride Month, which means there's the colorful beach chair. So if you're someone who wants to pick up this parasol and beach chair that are rainbow pride, then you can feel free to hop in there and grab that. I've already grabbed mine. It's very cool. It's the similar chair setup to what Nat Pagle gave you back in, I feel like it was Warlords of Draenor that you got that during. It might have been Legion. It was between the two of them. And you get a fishing chair that you could sit in and literally fish from the chair, which is awesome. I don't know if you can fish from this chair. I will certainly try it. If it is the exact same toy, then potentially yes, which would be kind of cool. But either way, that's a neat thing to pick up. They also have the pearlescent goblin wave shredder. This is like a rocket skateboard, basically, that you can, you know, or surfboard that you can essentially ride around. It's pretty cool. Definitely worth checking out and picking up as well. It is not dynamic flying. I'll tell you that right off the bat. I don't know if there's plans to make it dynamic flying. I know Jason was mentioning that the discs that people ride around on, there are no plans currently to make those dynamic flight. I would hope that this would, because man, surfing around inside, you know, your dragon riding type mechanics would be really fun. So I'm hoping that hits that. I also want to be able to do like, you know, barrel rolls. I think would be really fun with something like this. So, you know, let me really enjoy the pearlescent goblin wave shredder for sure. Jason, I know, is very excited, as well as myself, about the Murloc flotation devices that are involved inside of this. You basically get two different ones. There's one that's yellow that comes with an actual outfit that you buy for like 650 or 600 or so credits. But there's also an individual one, and the individual one is 220, I believe. Yeah, 220. That you can buy. That's the Sunrise Murgle floater, and basically, if you want a green one or a yellow one, you gotta spend some currency to pick those up. There, it's cute. Just, you know, it is. It's just cute. It is what it is. If you want to get them, they're definitely worthwhile getting. So check those out as well. The pet this month is a little ogre who looks like he's very sunburned to me. I don't want to like be judgmental about ogre skin colors, but that's what they made him look like. So that's what I'm saying. So if that is not the case, I apologize to Marlock, the cute little ogre. But yeah, they made him pink and look like he's sunburned. So I'm just assuming that's why he's there inside of the sun and beach themed everything. There's fun, you know, wicker hats with sunglasses and all sorts of fun things for people to pick up and check out. So I would certainly encourage you to do that. And of course, this month's bonus reward is the Extreme Water Blaster display. Basically, the Extreme Water Blaster display is, you know, the foam fighting swords that everyone can put down. You put down the Extreme Water Blaster display and pick up the Extreme Water Blaster. You can then run around and have a water gun fight with all of your friends if that's something you want to do. I did hear that the actual weapon transmog for the water blaster that you can pick up does in fact still shoot water once you are using that out and about in the world. So if you're concerned about that, don't worry. If you do choose to purchase the actual transmog for the water blaster gun, you can essentially run around on your hunter or, you know, whatever class you're using that can use a gun and be squirting people or bosses or enemies with water, which could be really fun during Cataclysm Time Walking event. Shooting Ragnaros with a water gun might be a fairly effective way to take that boss down. So just putting that out there for folks who are interested.
Yeah, some pretty fun stuff this month. First of all, I always like it when there's a toy as the bonus reward, because I just think they add so much cool flavor to the game, you know, and I'm more likely to use them or at least be interested in having it than like a pet or something. I got to point out the bow staff. The Initiate's bow It's only 60 tender, and it's just basically like a bamboo reed with some like stuff wrapped around it. It looks incredible. I need to get this and use it on my Pandaren monk because it's the perfect complement to all the new mogs we got from Remix, with having the Shadow Pen set in finally, and having Chen's hat and his sake barrel, backpack thing. Yep. Yeah, so that's definitely on my list. And yeah, this reminds me of, man, years ago, Heroes of the Storm did like a Suns Out, Guns Out themed event for the summer. And
yes,
they had
did.
like, like swimsuit, versions of skins for all the heroes. And like, remember Tychus specifically, like his giant Gatling gun thing got replaced with a thing that was like a water gun. He's running around in like a Speedo and flip flops. That was so fun. So this kind of reminds me of that a little bit. I want the Murloc floaty things in the gear store though. Can I buy them, please, and put them in my pool? Like, let's, it's cool to have them in the game. I'm into that, but like, let's go one step farther because I need some pool toys for the season. So where's the little Murloc floaty thing? So let's do that. But yeah, I think this month is one of those months that is a little heavier leaning into the theme than some other months that we've seen. Like almost all the stuff is like summertime, like at the beach, bright colors, whatever, which is okay. There's nothing on my list this month that I'm like, oh, like I definitely need that, other than the bow, which is such a it's such a simple item, but that's the thing that really jumped out to me.
I have to remind everyone that Trial of Style is a thing, and so if there's ever a summer theme, you might need some of these transmogs. I'm just reminding you that could be a use for some of these transmogs, so be sure you're picking something up that helps you with summer. I definitely want to at least get one of the hats with the sunglasses. I think that is ideal. If I do choose to get the Murloc flotation device, one that's part of the set, I know I get a flowered lei. That's certainly something worthwhile picking up as well. So yes, there's a lot of transmog here I really like. I do not have enough tender this month to buy everything that I want to buy, so I will need to earn what I can for this month, 1,000, and then decide what I'm banking away. So pick something expensive and bank that away is what I'll probably end up doing. So we shall see. A 600 plus item or something will get thrown into the freeze, and we'll see what happens next month when we kick off July, which if this month was summer, I'm curious what next month is going to be for sure once we hit that. Okay, shifting out of live game, we are going to move into WoW Remix with Missa Pandaria and talk a little bit about what's going on in WoW Remix at the moment. So the hotfixes for what's been going on inside there is where I'm going to kick off here. Endgame tuning adjustments have been made to heroic scenarios, heroic dungeons, normal raids, so that they increase in power more slowly between levels 60 and 70. This is specifically targeting towards bosses, is what I believe this is particularly targeting towards, but heroic and mythic raids have been adjusted so there are smoother transitions between them. As far as the actual difficulties that are happening there is what I presume they're playing with and have played with, which might actually feel really weird, because if people are dynamically increasing their power level the way that Jason's talked about, you might not notice this at all, because you might just have people that are so powerful in a group with you that, depending on who's in the group with you, this content feels really good or feels terrible. I don't know. Could just be one of those things.
Right. Yeah, I can't really speak to the way this change feels, because like I have been powering up quite a bit, and most of the time when I do a dungeon now, like I'm the top damage, because that's the state of things. I'm attacking everything I'm in combat with, right? It's all exploding. So I'm doing a ton of damage. I mean, so I can't speak to how this feels. I haven't heard much from anybody about like, oh, I have a tune in the 60s now and it feels so much better than the first one did. I believe that they made these changes. I think they might just be, if you're doing just like grab bag match made content, right? Odds are pretty good. You're probably getting somebody who's doing like 1 million DPS. And so, yeah, you may not really, this was a bigger problem 3 weeks ago than it is right now.
Agreed. Players who have completed the Pearlfin Jinyu questline can now bring lesser charms of good fortune to Elder Lucian. I guess it's Lucian for additional reputation. So they've added in some extra reputation stuff as well for Chief Kaka, bringing in lesser charms of good fortune there for more reputation. And they also fixed a bug that inadvertently capped the maximum stats that can be gained on the Cloak of Infinite Potential, and that cap has been removed. Yes, it'd be kind of weird if a Cloak of Infinite Potential had a limit on it. So yes, they removed that as well.
There was some like indication. I don't know. I guess the bug. People must have been running into this. There was a Wowhead post about it that like, oh, actually, your cloak can only get 200,000 stam on it or whatever, and then it stops. And at first, I was like, oh, well, that's actually a good thing. because like at a certain point you really don't need any more stam, and you'd much rather be getting other stats. But I guess if like every stat cap, that would be a problem, because you don't want that. You want the good stuff. I mean, stam is good to have, but I think my remix character already has over 3 million health. Like,
I mean, it's gonna say once you hit that level of health, you'd almost rather just have leech so that you just maintain that health all the time.
Yeah, I'd pretty much rather have anything else than stam at beyond a certain point. But I think that's where people are running into it. It does seem like, I don't know if there's some kind of logic, but it does seem like the game likes to give you stam. Like there's some kind of preference there, because I've gotten probably way more stam than anything else. So I just figured like, oh well, maybe that's like a cap that you hit, and then like you just don't get stam anymore, and you get other stuff. But I don't think it was even working like that. Like I think people who had the 200k stam on the cloak were still getting more stam. It just wasn't doing anything, and that's like worst case scenario, because what you want is the good stuff.
Yeah, they increased the reputation gains from the Shadowpan Assault to 1,000 per day, up from 300. So definitely increasing that up for folks who are trying to get that reputation done and those objectives done. The Elder Great Turtles and Ancient Spine Claws have migrated back to Timeless Isle shores, which should benefit players who are just killing time. So yes, if you're someone who is trying to accomplish that, you can just decide to farm the turtles and the spine claws if that's what you want to do. The illusion for Shaw corruption can now be destroyed by players who already have learned it elsewhere. That's a nothing like bag bloat of just, hey, how many illusions of Shaw of corruption do I need inside of my bags that I cannot get rid of? Oh God. Yes. So thankfully that is now destroyable. They've adjusted and tuned several gem items. The Arcanist Edge absorb amount was doubled. The Fervor health amounts has been doubled as well, and the Righteous Frenzy damage dealt has been increased to 2% per second, up from 1%. This should give healers a bit more to do while optimizing their group's damage, and it should make some gem combinations even more interesting. So they're just trying to tweak the gems a little bit there. We also saw Searing Light collected healing points was increased to 10% from 7%. And Slay cannot critically strike is the other one they put in there, where Slay still hits for the player's entire health amount and will remain an incredibly powerful option. So just as a heads up, if you have 3 million hit points, Slay still hits for 3 million damage. It just can't crit and hit for 6 million damage.
Right.
That's the
Slay
difference.
is still very good. I didn't know that it could crit. Like I saw this note and going, oh no, they nerfed Slay. Why? But then I read it. I went, well, that makes sense. Like I wouldn't think that it could crit, and like. Yeah. I also don't totally feel like I need it to, that was just sensationalizing by the WoW fan media about the Slay nerf. Definitely. I'm still using it. I think it's great. It's so funny when you have like a huge group of people that all have Slay and you're fighting some boss, and then it hits 10% health and then it just kind of disappears.
Yep. Ward of Salvation no longer applies a heal absorb. It has been reworked so that the caster's heals are duplicated as an absorbed shield, but not other sources of healing. Ward of Salvation will remain a powerful way for healers to deliver some additional damage, but should not trivialize the most difficult raid encounters. They also made Righteous Frenzy can no longer be cast on non-party members. And in the Throne of Thunder Dark Animus encounter, the increased damage and attack speed by anima golems casting Accelerating Link has been reduced to 100% per stack from 250% per stack. Oh my God. I cannot imagine how fast stuff was dying. 250% increase with the bonuses people already have. Oh dear. Yes, that is extreme. Okay, in the Throne of Thunder Iron Quad encounter, Stormcloud should no longer deal extreme damage to players. Good. I'm glad they found another place that they needed to nerf something like that. In a Brewing Storm, Valtongue Skirmishers, Valtongue Sting now reduces healing by 60%, down from 90%. So if you're someone who is struggling with healing in a Brewing Storm, that has been resolved for you. And they also fixed a bug that unintentionally added additional enemy health for highly geared players against heroic bosses. Yes, there was this very weird thing that happened last week where players were telling other players to delete their jewelry because the neck and rings that they had were increasing their item level, which then made the bosses harder to kill inside of raids. So it was actually better to destroy your gear so you did not have it, and then you could actually farm content easier than if you were wearing these pieces of jewelry. So yeah, I'm glad they fixed that, because that was dumb.
Yeah. Luckily, that was not intentional behavior.
Yes. Dumb is what that was. So I'm very glad that got fixed. You should never be in a situation where it's like, oh, dude, you're wearing jewelry? Pff, you don't know what you're doing. Take that stuff off. Watch how much easier everything is. What? Wait, right. What? Yeah.
Well, and also the idea that like, oh, well, you get more gear and more power, but you're not like, you haven't gained like absolute power compared to the content. You have actually relatively not gained power because now this scales up because you're more powerful. So it remains a relevant challenge. Like that is not what we want in this game. Some games work that way, but that is not how WoW has or ever should work. I mean, it seems like this was just a bug and not some kind of design intent or whatever, but so fine. I mean, there wasn't any other communication about it. They hotfixed it out and it seems like we're back to normal. So wonderful. I mean, that's one of the big selling points of this whole mode, right? Is to get mega powerful and just smash bosses apart. So yeah, we don't want additional enemy health.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I would say, maybe they could consider tuning up the health on world bosses a tad. Because those world boss laps are starting to get a little dicey. It's a little hard to get in the group finder group and actually tag the boss before it dies.
Yeah.
So like that's one place I could see it just because of the nature of how a world boss works. Yeah, it's like, okay, who cares if a world boss has an extra, couple million health or whatever. It's just, it gives more people a chance to get a tag on the spawn. And it's not like the bosses are hard or anything. But we don't want that in, or any kind of more organized content, even like LFR or something. So, I mean, this is heroic raid bosses specifically. Like I said, we did heroic raid last night with a real kind of motley crew in terms of, item level spread and everything and sort of prep for heroic raid. And I mean, there were some people whose tunes were just not geared up and they would immediately kind of die whenever any AoE damage went out or anything. Right. But, 3 or 4 people were able to really carry the whole 10-man group. So I think it's heroic raid is, if we had a group of everybody was sort of in that realm of actually prepared item level wise for heroic raid, I think it would have been fine. So, I think it's probably in a good spot. It's a little hard to judge because it's like, we had a very weird experience last night, but we also got all the way through Heroic Siege of Orgrimmar in a little more than 2 hours with like maybe, 2 total boss wipes or something. So, I think that's probably okay with the tuning. And like, a couple of our players were super high gear and it's not like the bosses were scaling up as a result.
Right. All right. Next, we got a post here from Kyvax, and I'm going to skip the front half of it because it is basically talking about what we just talked about inside of the hotfixes, because these all went live because this post is from last Wednesday. But they do talk about what's coming up. And so they say, looking forward, we want you to know that we have no plans to change the bronze cost of upgrading gear, which is one of the things that Jason and I were like, hey, it'd be nice if they put a post out stating what their intentions were with these things. So thank you, Kyvex, for listening to our show, and I appreciate you putting together this post. That was very excellent of you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we appreciate the attention to detail here.
Exactly. We've seen many players make the decision to upgrade items so that they can comfortably take on heroic raids and hopefully earn large amounts of bronze available from them. The gains in power that come from increasing your item levels are exponential, not linear, and we don't want anyone to second guess their decision to become much more powerful. For players who primarily wish to gather bronze and acquire some of the cosmetic rewards available in Remix, many options have emerged. We're seeing some players level up multiple alts for the 40,000 bronze from the quests at level 50, 60, and 70, while others primarily focus on earning bronze with multiple level 70 characters, doing queued content, and repeating daily quests and activities. We'll outline all of the recent Remix hotfixes in our hotfixes update post, which is what we just went through, and we'll continue to read all your feedback. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to go on this journey with you all. Thank you very much. So, yes, thank you for making that clear, Kyvex, to the community, that yes, there is not going to be any change in bronze cost for upgrading your gear. So if you want to upgrade your gear because you have nice gear that you want to upgrade, by all means, go ahead and do it. That gear will remain relevant. And it will not be a situation where bronze costs drop and you have buyer's remorse for buying early and then the next day or next week it dropping in price. So it sounds like they're most likely, if they're going to do anything, it'll just be increasing bronze rewards, not reducing the cost of things. So there you go.
Right. And last week I kind of talked about this paralysis I was experiencing because there were so many changes and it's such a heavy investment to upgrade your gear. It takes about 40K bronze for a round of upgrades, to every slot. I sort of was saying, I was reading the writing on the wall that I don't think they're going to change the cost and they're just going to keep upping bronze yield or finding new places to reward bronze from. And it sounds like that is what is going to be happening. I think a lot of people who are playing the mode did take this post to heart because, like I said, I mean, I don't think there's a coincidence that this post came out, last Wednesday, the 29th was?
Yep.
And right around like Wednesday, Thursday, I started noticing like, okay, when I queue into a heroic dungeon, stuff is just exploding. Like, I think a lot of players went, okay, it's time to buy the upgrades because I'm playing this mode. I want to play it. I want to do content in it. And more character power is going to mean more access to the currency to buy cosmetics or whatever.
Right.
I think there's just you can really feel a huge difference as you start working your way up the item level ranks there. It's definitely evident in the content when you're in a group, for sure. It's a much different. Doing a heroic dungeon right now is a completely different experience than it was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's just the power curve is so accelerated from what we'd see in a normal season of World of Warcraft or whatever, a patch cycle. So I'm glad. I'm glad they came out and said this way, just make no bones about it. Like, we are not going to do discounts on the item level upgrades. Take it or leave it. Like, if you think 40K for a round of item level upgrades is too much, then save your bronze for something else, but you're not going to get that big power spike.
Yeah.
If you spend the bronze, you're going to be rewarded with power, and then you'll have more access to more content to get more bronze. So, I think that's a fair approach from the development and communication standpoint. And, I don't know, man. I don't have a lot of regrets so far. My character's feeling really strong. I'm kind of breezing through a lot of stuff that I'm doing. And my main goal right now is just to keep powering up and enjoying what I'm playing. And then I'll kind of reassess, go back and go, okay, how much bronze do I have? Like, what's my typical like bronze income for the week or whatever? How much time do we have left? All right, what do I really want to buy here? Because there's definitely stuff that I still want, but I think most of it is more in that, 2,500 to like 4K range for bronze costs. So most of the stuff on my list is not super expensive. So, that's sort of where I'm settling into. I think my main goal is like, okay, once I hit about, 50, 60K bronze in my pocket, I'm buying an upgrade round, and then, we'll start back over. And with all the stuff they added with the daily stuff, just those caches alone from doing those activities are like 8750 bronze. And then you're getting a ton of bronze from doing the stuff you're actually doing and looting stuff, and then the gear that you're scrapping. So, it ends up being, depending on how much time I put in, it's maybe every other day I'm buying an upgrade round, which is feeling pretty good. I mean, one day last week, I was sitting on so much bronze, I bought 2 upgrade rounds at a shot, and then I went and did content. My character felt remarkably different in terms of overall power from that. Like, that was a huge jump, going 2 entire upgrades at once.
Yeah, it can be a very, very large spike in character power because all of your gems and everything scale off of item level for whatever the gear they're inside of. So yeah, it is a very dynamic power surge that happens when you upgrade gear. So certainly worthwhile doing for folks if that's something that you are going to be doing, doing more max level activities for your character. It's certainly worthwhile doing. Okay. Moving out of Remix, moving into War Within, we're going to start off with some alpha development notes that sort of landed last week. We know that the new human racial, No Place Like Home, which I love the name of, is now that your Hearthstone cooldown is reduced by 5 minutes and gains an additional charge, and this replaces diplomacy. I love this, actually. I was thrilled that this is what people were getting, because I very much was worried about what the replacement for diplomacy could come out as, because there's a lot of things that are just kind of I think this is a great touch. I love the No Place Like Home reference. I love the concept that your Hearthstone cooldown is just faster. The additional charge is actually amazing, because especially when you're out there leveling inside of a new world, you use your Hearthstone fairly often, and I often end up finding that I'm holding on to my Hearthstone in case I absolutely need it, but it can make questing so much faster to just skip travel time to places. So, setting your Hearthstone at a new travel hub, going out in the world, doing a bunch of quests, and then just hearthing back, and then turning in those quests, and then going back out and doing another round of quests and hearthing back is really nice to do. And I find that often that if it's on cooldown, that's a really unfortunate situation. So I'm glad with this. Obviously, there's no character power gain that happens with these sorts of racials. There isn't supposed to be some large, huge power spike that happens. This certainly isn't berserking, if that's what people were looking for, is something like that. You're not getting that. You're not getting some sort of stun. It'd be, a stun or an interrupt would be very powerful. It's sort of, thinking about Horde side things with Blood Elves and the Tauren, both having, different sort of things like that. This is certainly one that is going to be much more, hey, this helps you get questing done faster. It helps you move around the world faster. I think diplomacy wasn't something that gave you a large power gain on your character. It just might have given you that power gain a slight edge faster than everyone else. So I feel like this is a reasonable replacement for something on that race. So glad to see it. I think that's a good choice.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, when you consider what it is it was replacing a passive benefit, right? So yeah, it's not going to be some game-changing new active ability or whatever. I know some human mains that were really bummed out about this. Like, oh, well, this sucks. I'm going to race change now because this just isn't good enough. I don't know, man. I never really choose my characters based on whatever the racial bonuses are. I go more for overall flavor for like the character that I'm making. One of the humans I do have is a mage, and it's like, well, okay, the mage can already get around quite a bit. So I don't know how attractive that is for that particular character, but I think this is fine. I mean, diplomacy had to die, right? It's a casualty of warbands. You want warbands? I mean, everybody wants warbands. So you have to make it so that humans aren't the default correct choice for everything to play through the content the first time.
Yep.
Because otherwise they would be, and so diplomacy had to die, and they had to come up with some other, relatively passive quality of life bonus for humans. So I think this is a fine replacement for that in this new world that we're moving into. I understand it's not like the most sexy possible bonus you could have, but if diplomacy was the reason why you were a human main, then I could understand why you might be ready to move on to something else. Like I don't think that's a particularly good reason to choose a main. Not for me. I would never do that, right? Like that's not the way I played. I could have played that way, I guess, but that was not how I approached it to begin with. And so I could understand why, if that's who you are as a player, and it's like, well, human diplomacy is so good because I don't really want to do reps, and it just makes it so much faster, and then I don't have to worry about it and whatever. Okay, I get that element of it, but yeah, in the broader context of what the War Within and beyond is going to be, it had to go, and this is something that it doesn't really step on too many toes. It's not like suddenly, oh, now everybody's going to like change to human because the replacement for diplomacy is so good. You know what I mean? It's a bonus.
They go, hey, guess what? We now have the human version of Berserking. You just watch literally a ton of people race change immediately. Yeah.
Right. And like, yeah, you knew it wasn't going to be anything like that for the bonus they were replacing, so I don't know. It's anytime they change anything that's that long running with anything about your character is going to be controversial, of course, but we'll
just give humans a cheat death. Yeah, this human courage or human endurance or whatever. So as opposed to dying once every 10 minutes, they can snap themselves back up again for 10% health or whatever it was. Like, no, that's not.
Yeah,
that's
like it's way overpowered compared to what they're replacing. Considering that, like, they could have just killed diplomacy and just said, okay, that's it. Get a replacement. It's a decent quality of life, and I mean, I think you identify a good use case, which is when you are in a new continent, new expansions out, you have a ton of new questing to do. You have less pressure on bouncing back to the hub to go turn stuff in or just whatever you want to do. Obviously, you can have new professions to learn, and professions involve working at the table, and so being able to just bounce back and forth faster is it is a nice benefit there, even if it's not the most exciting thing you could possibly think of. I don't think it was supposed to be.
The only thing to me that would have been cooler than this, to be honest, as far as like a non-power gain kind of situation, is if they made it where, as opposed to your Hearthstone takes you back to a home hub and drops you there, it's your Hearthstone opened a portal from your location to your home hub, and you could go back to your home hub, do stuff there, and then take the portal back to where you were. That would have been cool. If you did Diablo style portal like that would have been something I would have also accepted.
Two-way,
if it was a two-way Hearthstone, would have been a really cool advantage to throw in there for that race. But it is what it is. It's one of those changes they put in, and I'm kind of happy with this one. So good to see. All right, user interface wise, the visuals for meta quests has been updated, so people might have noticed that already. And of course, arenas are now open. All arena maps now have levers that players can click on to indicate that they are ready for the game to start. Once all the players have hit their lever, the arena match will start in 10 seconds and skip the whole timer that takes place with that. So if you're someone who's like, hey, I don't like having to wait 60 seconds at the start of an arena match or whatever it is, I'm ready to go, let's go. Everyone can just sort of click their lever, and then you can pop it into the arena really quickly. So that's a nice little change they put in there as well. Man, all right, let's talk about the fact that beta's coming, because it's happening, man. It is happening this Thursday. World of Warcraft War Within kicks off in just 2 days. That is the 5th of June. That is going to be happening. Actually, it's Wednesday. Jeez, I thought it kicked off on Thursday. Kicks off on Wednesday, and players are able to essentially get an email invitation directing them to download the game client, and you will be able to get into the beta. And man, there's going to be so much for you to check out. The players who have opted in can be selected to be testers. So just right off the bat, it's not everyone who's going to be selected right away. It's not open beta. It is still going to be closed, but invitations are going to go out regularly throughout the test that they're doing. If you've selected to participate on your Battle.net account, account will be flagged, and then you'll also, if you're somebody who actually bought the Epic upgrade to War Within, you're going to get immediate access as well. So there's the buy-in version. If you want to just get into it quickly by purchasing, you can do that. They encourage people to make sure drivers and stuff are up to date. Recognize that your UI is going to be totally broken. So that's another factor that kicks off in here. But what do you actually get to experience? Well, the zone's Kaz Algar, designated sector AR934, is beneath the surface of Azeroth, and an expansive world exists fraught with danger and awaiting to be explored. You also have the Isle of Dorn, the Ringhold Deep, Hallowfall, and Ashkahet. These are all different areas that you get to get in and explore. The Earthen are the Titan-forged Earthen that you can actually have as an allied race. And then dungeon-wise, they have the Rookery, Stone Vault, Priory of the Sacred Flame, and City Threads as level-up dungeons that you can experience. There's 4 of those, and then there's 4 max-level ones with Cinderbrew Meadery, Dark Flame Cleft, the Dawnbreaker, and Old City as places that you can hop in and explore. We know that the Nerubar Palace raid dungeon is going to be something that we'll see later in beta. It's going to have 8 boss encounters. It's located within Ashkahet. And basically, once they start doing raid boss testing, obviously, that will all kick off for players to dive in and experience and explore that. Delves are live. If you're someone who wants to experience what Delves are like with the new characters, with hero talents and everything like that, you can get in there and check out all the different delving vaults and start working towards your beta version of the new mechanical mount reward, which I don't think is actually in yet, but we'll have to see if they do put that in ahead of time so people can play around with the system and play around with the parts. I hope they accelerate it so players can really get an understanding of the entire system that's going to be happening with that, because there's a lot of customization for you to explore with that. Warbands are there. There's, limited features for warbands, but there's a lot of it in there already. They're still working on achievement conversion and all that kind of stuff that's taking place. So warbands are certainly worthwhile checking out. The hero talents, as I mentioned, are there and live for the hero trees. I don't know which ones we're still missing. We might have all of them now, but if we don't, I'm sure they'll be in pretty soon. We'll get updates on that. The Deep Hall Ravine Battleground is something you can check out in there. Professions with new recipes and enchantments, and as well as updated NPC work order system is in there for you guys to check out, as well as UI updates for improved quest icons and everything else UI based that we've talked about over the past few weeks is going to be in there as well. Man, it is a lot to explore. I know there's a lot of people who are going to be diving deep into this beta to sort of get a handle on what class they want to play, what feels fun, what professions are going on with things, all that sort of content. So I encourage people to dive in and give feedback. Keep in mind, this is a beta, which means that stuff is not complete and stuff is very subject to change. And a lot of that change will take place based off your feedback. So go out there, leave feedback, let these devs know what you like and what you don't like. And I'm sure we'll see lots more changes to come.
Yeah, I mean, we were just saying last week, like, hey, pretty small alpha updates the last couple weeks. Like, they're starting to kind of get everything in there. So that beta tag's got to be pretty close by. And so here it is. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of stuff available for testing right away. It basically it's 11.0 without season 1, right? Like, you're not going to be able to go do the raid. You're not going to be able to do keystones right away. And you're not going to be able to do like any kind of beta ranked PvP or something. But, the content is all there otherwise, and it's all available for testing. Even follower dungeons are going to be in, which is really cool that they're getting that into the beta. But yeah, it's exciting. I mean, it's cool that, you get guaranteed access with the Epic Edition purchase. But you can just opt in, and you got to wait for invite waves, and they usually ramp up quite a bit over the course of it. I'm sure it'll go open beta by the last month or so. That's what they usually do. But yeah, it's going to be cool to see this kick off and a whole bunch of new players get to check this stuff out. Also, it sounds like character copy is going to be in right away. So that's exciting for me, because I could just copy over my character from live and then not have to start over every week with a new experience. I really just don't have a lot of time to dive into this week. I'll probably install it and get my character copied over and maybe play a little bit, but I don't have time. I'll have to get back. I'll have to get into it more when I get back from vacation. But Yeah, it's exciting, man. I mean, we had a good like 2 months of alpha, a little bit less than that, and then straight into bed. This is just like rapid fire. This stuff spinning up. So
yeah,
I'm excited for people to get in and check it out. I think these zones are really stunning. Like the visual fidelity of what this expansion looks like is another kind of leap forward from Dragonflight. Even there's just so many nice touches that they're able to do now, and I think the hero talent system is really fun. It's very flexible. It adds a lot of cool flavor to your character and some cool new power, and I think people are going to like that a lot. I'll be curious to see what people think of Delves. I think Delves have the potential to be a really great addition to the game because they're a flexible way to actually do something that feels like it matters on an alt, right? Like maybe it's a character you're not really comfortable with, playing in a group situation where there's, social expectations and there's pressure. And even if, your friends are like, hey, we'll carry you through a thing, like you don't really want to be carried, maybe, like that could be not fun. But yeah, I mean, Delves and follower dungeons, like you can just experience this content at your own pace, the way that you want to. Delves obviously have sort of this scaling difficulty, but at baseline, they seem pretty simple to me. Like I did some on the first, the lowest difficulties in alpha, and it was like, well, this is like a fun little, solo adventure thing to go do, but I don't feel particularly, pressured here. It's not testing my skills. I'm just enjoying exploring these interior spaces, and the rewards seem pretty cool. So I'm excited to see what. I'm kind of in my own little bubble with this stuff, but I'll be interested to see what more people think of the system as they get to play around with it, because my hope is that it works out really well and people like it, and it's just a thing that we have in WoW going forward. We don't have to reinvent the wheel every expansion or every other expansion with this kind of solo or group agnostic content or whatever. And we don't see this thing where we have like a glut of public events every time a patch comes out, because everything can just be, channeled into this system. That's kind of my hope for it. So I hope people dig it. I think it's really cool and has a lot of potential.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of potential. Blizzard just needs to deliver on it when it comes down to it. So I'm hoping that, people dive in, they really enjoy it, and they see what's going on with it. Okay, shifting out of War Within, we'll move to Cataclysm Classic. This is the last chunk of WoW that we'll talk about on today's show. Cataclysm Classic's raid is now live. All the raids are now live, raid dungeons. So Bastion of Twilight, Blackwing Descent, and Throne of Four Winds are now up and running for you to dive in and check out. Bastion of Twilight has 4 bosses, 5 on heroic difficulty. You can obviously do normal and heroic on 10-man, or you can do normal and heroic on 25-man. It's in Twilight Highlands. You can dive in there and check it out. And I remember lots of this raid. It was painful to get through the first time. A lot of the trash was very dangerous. I wouldn't be one that I'd be looking forward to diving back into, although I will say that the Cho'Gall fight is a cool fight and worth checking out, and certainly being in there and fighting along ogres and dragons is definitely a very Warcraft thing to do, which is pretty fun. So there are some aspects of this place that are really fun. I think it really just came down to Thralian and Valiona that I just hated as an encounter. I just really disliked that one, but when it came down to Cho'Gall, I think that was a great fight. Halfus was all right as well, so certainly worthwhile getting in and doing some of the Bastion raid. Blackwing Descent is the next one that you probably step foot in. It has 6 bosses, obviously 10 and 25-man modes for normal and heroic. And this is the one where Nefarian has sort of warped attempts to create a new breed of dragons. This is like it's the raid with the blind dragon in it. Let's just put it out there that way. Man, the Omnicron defense system is something that people can sort of get in and check out right away as a boss. It's one of those council fights that I think is decent to do. Magma was the fight that was like special for me because I figured out a way to do that boss that then everyone else started doing that way, which thought was really cool. I sort of like spread the word of like, hey, this is a fast way to kind of cheat this fight in a certain way, and everyone started doing it, and it was pretty neat that I caught on so quickly. So Magma was cool that way. Atramedes is the blind dragon that you ring the gong, and basically the dragon's fire will chase that person, and you have to ring gongs at different times. I still have video of me killing this boss on YouTube, which I think is hilarious. So it's a great fight for folks who want to get in there. You got Chimeron, Maloriak, with all the throwing potions on people and mutating creatures with Maloriak, and then Nefarian's End at the very end, where you not only have to kill Nefarian, you then have to kill like the skeletal remains of a dragon as well. So there's a lot of fun encounters inside of there. And then Throne of the Four Winds is that 2-boss sort of big windy encounter in Uldum, where you have the 10, 25 player modes where you kill like the 4 bosses on the platforms, then you kill big old Alakir in the center and are fighting that. So you get the Conclave down and then you get Alakir down. And yeah, the raids are out now, so everyone can get in there and dive in and explore and check out all that kind of fun stuff. But I think overall Cataclysm for me just sits on the back burner of I wouldn't even have it installed. I'm probably not going to dive into Cataclassic. I got too much else going on, but I'm very happy for those who are diving in and exploring and having fun with it. I know I was watching Bajira play it a whole bunch and opening up like talent screens where my brain was like, oh my God, there was a glyph like UI that happened during that period of time with different glyphs that went into different like places on a triangular UI thing. And I was like, man, I forgot about all of this stuff. It's bizarre to go back and look at and be like, oh yeah, geez, this game was really different.
Yeah, the old glyph system was actually pretty cool. I feel like these raids are a big step up in complexity from even like Wrath of the Lich King.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a concerted effort among the dev team for the outset of Cataclysm to like, we are going to like punish people, basically. I don't have a better way to say it. Like, the dungeons got a lot harder, longer, more complex, versus the kind of Wrath model of like blast through this in 15 minutes or whatever. And yeah, the raids I think were kind of in a similar vein. The opening tier here, I mean, I just have memories of these fights being pretty complex and difficult compared to what I was used to or kind of like looking for coming into a new expansion, and especially with having it split between 3 instances. And I don't think any one of these really stands out as like, well, you start here and you do this and you kind of gear up more. Like maybe Blackwing Descent is kind of in that vein, but it's still pretty hard, I think. I mean, I think it at the time when it was released, it felt pretty hard. I don't know what kind of tuning they have with these, but the fights were just a lot more involved. There was more going on mechanically. A friend of mine that I play retail and remix with, he's also playing Cataclysm Classic, and he never played it back when. He's a bit younger, and he never played Cataclysm when it was out, and he's sort of grousing about these things he has to do to get raid ready and about how some of this stuff works in the Cataclysm version of the game. And I'm like, yeah, I know, man. I was there back then. I'm like, yep, that's what it is. So take it or leave it. I do think there's plenty of cool stuff inside of Cataclysm, but it is like one of my least favorite expansions ever.
Yep.
And I have no real desire to revisit it or play a character in it. I didn't really want to play Cataclysm in 2010, 2011, 2012.
Well, I have to caveat that. I was really excited for Cataclysm, and I was all in at the very beginning of it, and I was really enjoying it until I found that the grind was just a bit too much on Reputation. So I didn't like the daily loop very much because it was just like the whole fire aspect, grinding stuff in Hyjal to me was not super great or something that I enjoyed. And then going from that to the grind over for my actual character later in the expansion, when we just sort of went on to like the 14th month and 15th month of that expansion, it killed it for me. So I have to like caveat that I think it's a good expansion for World of Warcraft. I think it was around for way too long, and that a lot of the design around it was to slow players down a lot because they knew they were going to be sitting in this for a long time. When you have an expansion where they go, okay, if you guys sub for a year, we'll give you Diablo 3 for free and a mount. And it's just like, oh, you guys are really worried about how long we're going to be in this expansion, aren't you? Like, yeah, I think they were very concerned, and I think the team knew it, and I think they intentionally slowed stuff down as much as they possibly could to try and draw that grind out to give players something to motivate them to do in the game. And what it resulted in is those of us who were motivated to do it were like, this is not super fun to do. Like,
yeah, and it didn't help that they really didn't stick the landing with 4.3. I don't know. I don't want to turn the Cataclysm Classic segment to like dump on Cataclysm, but like I really didn't like it, and I lived through this content. Like, this doesn't feel like classic WoW to me. It was a long time ago, but I have like vivid memories of this content, and sort of how we got from here to there.
Yep.
And yeah, I think Dragon Soul was a really weak raid. I think the addition of LFR I understand why they did it, but I think that also had something to do with why Dragon Soul was such a bad raid. And then LFR has obviously had all kinds of ripple effects throughout the game for the intervening, 13 years or whatever.
Right.
I know they're not going to do their plan is currently not to do LFR in Cataclysm Classic, which is probably I don't know if that's right or not, because it's not Cataclysm. Like, without LFR Dragon Soul, that's not Cataclysm to me. So I guess we'll see how that shapes up. I get the sense the player base really doesn't want it, and they're probably correct. So maybe that's just the reason not to do it. But that was part of the path. Like, the game expected you to do LFR Dragon Soul back then, right? Yeah. Like, that was, even if you were playing organized raids, like, that was part of your kind of diet. Yeah. Because the gear was good. Like, it all worked together with your set bonuses and stuff. Like, if it's in there, you were doing it, and that's, it was exciting at first. I remember the first night, like, with the guild I was with, like, okay, we're going to go do LFR Dragon Soul. We'll see what this is all about. Oh man, we cleared it all. Holy crap. Like, we killed all the raid bosses. And, at that point in time, it was brand new. We had no way to contextualize what it meant. It was like, well, yeah, it's supposed to be like this. Like, the stuff just kind of dies. But the loot was, like, much better comparatively. I feel like, especially in Dragon Soul, you get, like, the unique weapons from Deathwing and everything, and they were like really strong. So, I don't know. I have a lot of complicated feelings about the expansion overall. I'll be curious to see, like, what the uninitiated who are playing Cataclysm for the first time, like, really think about it as they get in here and it sort of settles in. Does this, like, redeem the expansion's reputation to some degree, or do people go, oh yeah, right, like, the reason why a lot of retail players didn't like this and that and the other thing about it, I totally get that. Classic players playing Cataclysm is so weird to me, right? Like, I still can't kind of square it in my brain. Well, it seems like the thing that they wanted the opposite of, to have Classic, is to not play post Cataclysm. Like, Cataclysm is kind of, it's really the era where a lot of this stuff started to kick off and change the game fundamentally away from what they said they wanted, even like transmog and stuff like that. There's obviously features you want to have in your MMORPG, but there is there's certainly a school of thought where it's like, well, having transmog, like, kind of ruins the game, because you can't get a handle on, like, where somebody's at just by looking at them, which you could do in previous versions of the game. So it's complicated. It's a weird kind of experiment, I think, for Blizzard to be doing. So it'll be interesting to see what sentiment is like around this, especially after the next, like, few weeks as things kind of settle down. Agreed.
All right, folks, with that, we want to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Today, I'm giving a special shout out to Alianas, Arajian, James, Kapawi, Max, Pinky, Shorel, and Rager. Thank you so much for what you all contribute towards Patreon, as well as all of our patrons. Thank you so much for what you give. I know that right now is one of those, like, oh my God, there's so much to do in World of Warcraft, but we're also in summer and there's all these outdoor activities I want to be doing. So I understand that, things are drawing you away from the game, but this is a great way to stay informed, and we appreciate everyone who helps us continue to do the show on a regular basis. And so our Patreon is over at patreon.com/thestartingzone. And we don't have any new patrons to announce this week, but thank you again, everyone who gives such incredible support for the show.
Absolutely. Thank you, patrons, past and present. Makes a huge difference, helps us keep the show on the air, helps keep the archives online and all that stuff. So we really couldn't do it without you. So thank you for all the support for the show over the many years that we've been doing it.
Yeah. And another way to support the show, if you want to do that, you can head on over to your iTunes, Apple Podcast, leave us a 5-star review. They really help out our sort of reviews and ratings, boost us up those charts along iTunes so more people can find us. Haven't had one for a little bit, so we'd love to get another review in for a 5-star. Thank you so much for those. That's going to wrap up episode 634 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com or reach out to us on Twitter at The Starting Zone, or you can join our Discord server, thestartingzone.com/Discord. And we also have a place where you can pick up some swag. If you want to get some shirts and stickers and mugs and that kind of stuff, you can go over to TeePublic. That's teepublic.com/stores/thestartingzone. And you can check out all the designs that we have over there. And I guess, Jason, where can folks find you on the internet? And I want to caveat this by saying Jason is going on vacation next week. We will be recording our episode for next week on Friday this week. So it'll be one of those, hey, we know what's coming up, but if there are, and hopefully we get all the Thursday announcements, but if there's announcements on Monday next week, we will not have those as part of the show. So just as a heads up, it might get a little push. He's got the family vacation coming up.
That is true, yes. So we will not have, we'll be a little bit behind for next week. We'll be looking a bit farther ahead than usual, maybe is the best way to say it. But you can find me online on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald. You can also find me on Blue Sky. It's just Jay Lucas over there. So give me a follow. Come say hi. Give me amazing time-saving tips about spending my bronze in Remix, maybe.
Yes, please.
That's very much appreciated. You can also find the video channels at twitch.tv/Shieldwald and youtube.com/Shieldwald. They've been dormant, and I don't think I'll be streaming this week and definitely not next week. I kind of want to get back into it. Maybe I'll do some beta when I get back home. Just kind of hang out and, run around and do some stuff. That sounds like it would be fun. So, come check those out. I mean, there will be stuff there from time to time, but I haven't been on a regular schedule in quite a while now.
If you're trying to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey, over on Blue Sky. I'll be at SpencerHD, and then on Twitch, twitch.tv/SpencerHD, and youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And if you're trying to find this show, it's on Twitch at twitch.tv/The Starting Zone. We record live on Mondays. So if you want to check that out, feel free. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening, and jobs done.